raise your hand when your application is being heard, it will bring your name to the top of the list and will just make it easier for me to figure out who needs to be unmuted. Thank you very much. Over to you, Renee.
Thank you. Mayor Allen, you may proceed.
Thank you. All right, I'll call the meeting to order. Can I have a mover and seconder to do that, please? Councillor Cabral, Councillor Maude Chapman. That the regular meeting of the Council Township of Springwater of December 16, 2020 come to order at 6:34 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Deputy Mayor Coughlin sends her regrets this evening. And due to COVID-19, Council's taking the necessary steps to limit in-person meetings. So we're all tuned in virtually, as you're all aware. For those who are streaming and watching, you can watch the meeting live at www.springwater.ca. And for those who are listening by phone, you can dial in 647-558-0588 and use the ID 849-4716-2005 with the pound sign. This option is available during the meeting. And for those who can't do either of those and want to see the meeting, it is live, it is streamed, and you can watch it on the Township's YouTube channel, available by linkage through our website. Council, are there any disclosure of pecuniary interests this evening? Okay, we're moving on to item 3 in the agenda, which is the public meeting session. Can I have a mover and seconder to call the public meeting to order? Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Moore, that this public meeting of the council held under sections 34 and 51 of the Planning Act for applications ZB 220-012 and SU 220-001 by J. Robinson from MHBC Planning on behalf of Springwater Development Corporation, and ZB 220-014 by C. Phillips, Celeste Phillips Planning, Inc. on behalf of Stone Manor Operating Corp. Be called to order at 6:36 p.m. All those in favor? It is carried. Welcome to this planning meeting of Springwater Township Council, held in compliance with sections 34 and 51 of the Planning Act, to give the public an opportunity to express their views in regard to proposed amendments to the Township of Springwater zoning bylaw 5000 and proposed draft plan of subdivision as amended. The first part of this meeting is to present the amendments and draft plan of subdivision. Following, the public will be given an opportunity to make oral submission through the Zoom application. Any person wishing to make an oral submission must have notified the township prior to 8:30 a.m. this morning and must have been added to the commenters list. If a person or public body who files an appeal of a decision of the Township of Springwater in respect of a proposed zoning bylaw amendment or proposed draft plan subdivision does not make an oral submission at the public meeting or written submissions to the Township of Springwater before the proposed zoning bylaw amendments are passed, the local planning appeal tribunal may dismiss all or part of the appeal. All comments or questions should be addressed through the chair, myself. Oral submissions will be included in this meeting's minutes and form part of the public record, including the name and address of the speaker, as information is collected under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. The minutes of the meeting will be posted on the township's website. So the first item we're dealing with is ZB 220-012 and SU 220-001 by J. Robinson from MHBC Planning on behalf of Springwater Development Corporation at 1256 Wilson Avenue. I'll now call upon the Clerk Ainsworth to confirm notice of this meeting and the dates on which notice was given.
Notice of this public meeting was mailed on the 23rd day of November 2020 to the owner of the subject lands and to the assessed owners of 35 properties in the Township of Springwater within 120 meters of the area to which the proposed amendment would apply. and to all persons and public bodies as prescribed under the Planning Act and its regulations. Notice was also posted at the assessed property to which the proposed amendment applies at a location that was visible from Wilson Drive and Luella Boulevard. The notice was also placed on the township website.
And has the planning department received any correspondence in response to the notice of the public meeting?
Several comments have been received and they are noted on the agenda for tonight's meeting. Comments continue to be received regarding this application and can be viewed on the township's website.
Thank you. I'll now call upon Jamie Robinson of MHBC to give a brief explanation of the purpose and effect of the proposal. Council members and the public can follow along with the presentation, which has been included in the agenda. Mr. Robinson?
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. If it's okay, I will share my screen. I've got the presentation available here. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Just bear with me one moment. Can you see the presentation fine, everybody?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, great.
You can make it a bit bigger by going full screen and getting rid of the slides on the left.
Okay, just 1 second here. Because of that ratio, that's about the best I can do, or I'll lose the bottom of the slides.
Okay,
Your Worship.
go ahead.
So thank you, Your Worship, and members of council, and also members of the public for taking time this evening to join us. My name's Jamie Robinson. I'm a partner with MHBC Planning in Barrie. This application has been submitted by myself and my colleague Patrick Towns on behalf of the Springwater Development Corporation. And in terms of the project team is comprised of a number of consultants. The requisite supporting studies have been prepared, including an environmental study. Engineering work's been completed on the site, the requisite archaeological study, and soil testing on the site. So in terms of the location of the subject lands are located in the Anton Mills settlement area. They're located west of Wilson Road, and bordering the site to the west is the North Simcoe rail line. The property is just south of Luella Boulevard, and there's actually an extension in this location here that was left for a potential road allowance to carry on into the site. The Anton Mills settlement area does extend to the properties to the south of the site as well. In terms of an overview, it is in the Anton Mills settlement area, which is an area that's designated and zoned for growth, designated both in the County of Simcoe official plan as a settlement area and also in the Township of Springwater official plan as a settlement area. In terms of the current zoning of the site is zoned R1 with a holding symbol, and then the western portion of the site that's associated with some sloping lands that I'll detail in a little bit more in a few moments. That area of the site is zoned environmental protection with site-specific 15 exception associated with it. And it's immediately south of an existing subdivision, residential subdivision. What this public meeting entails tonight, there's two applications that have been made under the Planning Act. Firstly, a plan of subdivision application has been made, and the application is for the development of 14 lots. And the second application that's been made is a zoning bylaw amendment application. I'll provide the details of that zoning amendment application in a moment. The plan of subdivision application, again, is 14 lots. The site in totality is 5.3 hectares, and the lot sizes range from just over 1/3 of an acre to just over 2 acres in size. The servicing of the site is proposed by municipal water, by a municipal water system, the extension of the existing system in Anton Mills, which has been upgraded this year and is capable of servicing the site in accordance with the information provided by Ainley and Associates, who's the township engineering consultant. And then it's also be serviced by individual on-site septic systems and a 20-meter municipally maintained road. So just in terms of the layout of the subdivision, it's proposed to, and excuse me if I'm just looking off to my left, I have the presentation on my screen to the left, but so this is Luella Boulevard in this location here. So to the south of the existing residential lots on Luella Boulevard is the proposed draft plan of subdivision. And in terms of describing it, it's a through road. A cul-de-sac was considered at this location with an additional residential lot here. Through discussions with the township, fire department, engineering department, a road connection through to Wilson Drive was the proposed, was the preferred design of the subdivision from the municipality's perspective. In terms of lot sizes, the frontages range in size from 25.5 meters up to 78 meters in lot size. The 78-meter lot frontage is here. The smallest lot frontages are these larger lots along the corner. They're somewhat pie-shaped as they come up closer to the road. And the smallest lot frontage is 25.5 meters. The bylaw amendment has requested a minimum lot frontage of 24 meters for these lots, just to provide a little bit of flexibility should any of these lot lines have to change through the consideration of this draft approval. What we wanted to do is outline sort of the scale of development and where buildings could be located on the subject lands, and that's the intent of this drawing. Just moving across the site, the plan of subdivision from left to right or from west to east, this is the area of environmental protected lands. These lands are proposed, we considered whether it would be appropriate to have these lands as part of the lots that abut them, or whether it would be appropriate to separate them and dedicate them to the township. Township staff have indicated that they're not interested in obtaining these lands. So what we would propose through this application is that they would be zoned to that environmental protection zone to protect the natural heritage features and ensure development does not occur on those lots. And then it's common practice to fence environmental protected zones to limit encroachment into those areas from a yards perspective. In terms of dwellings, the zoning bylaw would permit both single-story or two-story dwellings within the plan of subdivision. In terms of the lot characteristics, the lots do all meet the minimum lot area requirements of the zoning bylaw. As I mentioned, there's a proposed reduced lot frontage, and you'll see in the next slide, we're also asking for relief from the minimum side yard setback. The zone that this property is in, or that would apply in this instance, requires a 4.5 meter setback where you have an attached garage to a dwelling, and we're requesting that be reduced to 3 meters, which is the same required interior side yard setback if there is no garage present. We believe that would result in a consistent built form and consistent placement of buildings on lots that you see in the subdivision in the area. Just in terms of lot frontages, the lots are a little bit, have slightly less frontage than the immediate lots along Luella and Laddie Lane. There are some lots up at the north end of Luella Boulevard that have a similar lot frontage to what's being proposed on this development here. All of these lots in this area are about 29 meters in frontage, so just a meter less than what the minimum lot frontage is, requirement of the bylaw. So moving along, I've provided an overview of the purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment already, but it's to provide for a reduced lot frontage from 30 meters to 24 meters. Again, the smallest lot in the development is proposed to be 25.5 meters, but we've included 24 to provide a little bit of flexibility should there have to be some shifting along those corner lots. And then similarly, the interior side yard setback that I've alluded to previously to make it a consistent setback, whether you have a garage or not a garage that's attached to the dwelling. From a land use planning perspective, we really think the impact's the same on the abutting properties. So the reason why, so from a zoning bylaw perspective, the reason we believe the proposed development is appropriate, and from the reduced lot frontage perspective, it does allow for an efficient use of land within the settlement area. From a planning context, we think it does provide an appropriate balance, which is I think the key consideration here between the existing built form in the area and the existing lot size, but also making efficient use of the lands that we do have designated in the settlement area. And from the reduced interior side yard setback, we do believe it still provides an appropriate separation distance between buildings on abutting properties, and still provides the opportunity to access the rear yards of properties with that proposed 3-meter setback. But just as I alluded to previously, the smallest lot is this lot here with the 25.5 meters frontage, and 24 is what's requested. This identifies where the conceptual building envelope would be on the 2 sort of different size lots within the proposed plan of subdivision. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the provincial planning documents and county planning documents. They've been reviewed, and there's an analysis provided in our planning report. From a big picture perspective, growth, and residential growth is directed to settlement areas, and Anton Mills is a settlement area. And these are lands that have been planned for growth for quite some time. From the township perspectives, it follows a similar policy framework that the settlement areas are to be the focus of growth. From a compatibility perspective, we believe the proposed residential, large residential lots that are proposed are compatible with the existing residential lot structure in the area. We also believe that the proposed development can be appropriately supported by the existing infrastructure, as demonstrated by our engineering analysis and the engineering comments made by the municipality's consultants. From a consultation perspective, we have undertaken some initial consultation and the property owners have gone door to door in advance of the notice of public meeting being provided. So there has been some feedback with respect to that. And then we have reviewed the comments that have been provided in advance of the public meeting tonight. Some relate to servicing and impacts related to water pressure in the area. We've been advised by the township's consultants that there has been improvements made to the Anton Mills system this year, and that the system is capable of supporting the proposed development. We've seen the comments with respect to the new road that's proposed from Luella Boulevard and the potential impacts on privacy associated with existing lots. And we're willing to work with the town and engineering department to consider options to reduce any potential impacts with respect to privacy that's enjoyed by existing property owners. But we do note that it is an area that's been earmarked for residential development for some time, but we will work to try to maintain vegetation where possible, or look at any other mitigation measures through the draft approval and registration process as appropriate. In terms of lot sizes, I've provided you with the justification. There's been concerns raised with respect to lot sizes and lot frontages and the relief that's sought from the bylaw. Again, the lot frontage that's proposed does meet them for each lot, meets the minimum requirements of the zoning bylaw of this zone. And the reduced lot frontages are to reflect the uniqueness of the property and the shape, and to really find, again, that appropriate balance between maintaining the character of the area, but also making efficient use of the limited land that is available within settlement areas in the municipality. So with that, we believe the proposed development is consistent with the provincial policy statement and does conform with the official plan, and that the proposed amendments do meet the intent of both the lot frontage and the minimum interior side yard requirements in the bylaw. That's all. That's it for me. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And we look forward to hearing any public comments that are provided and addressing those comments moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie, I see your card up. We have actually a comment from somebody who's written in, and then we'll open it up to council.
That's fine. Thank you. That's fine. Okay.
I now call upon the moderator to provide the number of people who've registered to ask questions or make comments regarding this application.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. 2 members of the public have registered to make an oral submission with regards to these applications. Gord and Eric Wilson at 1258 Wilson Drive.
Okay, thank you. Gord and Eric Wilson, you may now address myself and council with your questions and comments, please.
Yes, I'd like to say thanks everybody for this meeting. One of my concerns is privacy for the existing lots, which was touched on there, and the road that comes in off Wilson. I was hoping there's some regulations for the township to have for privacy fence along them property lines. Could you address that, please?
Well, what we're doing is taking comments, and then what will result from this will be probably referring it back to staff to incorporate consideration of those comments, and then a report back to council with respect to this. But I will turn to Mr. Robinson, Jamie Robinson, to see whether you have any comment with respect to that at this point.
Through your worship, thank you. It's something we're willing to work with the township on moving forward. What's the best methodology to screen or buffer, whether it's vegetation or a fence, is I think something that can be discussed. But I do agree with you, your worship, that tonight's to hear comments. It'll be referred back to staff, and we will work with staff and any of the commenters to try to address any concerns prior to a recommendation report coming back to council. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comment, Mr. Wilson?
The only other comment is the EP land at the back. That's presume what you consider that. And my understanding is there was going to be a fence put all the way around that. That's my concern.
Okay, Mr. Robinson. What was it?
Sure, maybe I can speak to that, and it's still up on the screen. When I discuss fencing, sometimes areas aren't fenced, but it's often common for environmental protection lands, even a page wire fence, for example, to be placed along the edge of environmental protection lands. So there's a delineation between the landscaped portion of a lot versus the environmental protection feature. So that's really what I was referring to in a fence, is that something to delineate the separation and where that EP location is.
Okay, so the concern would be along my property, which goes right back to the railway line.
On here, okay.
Yeah, so that's one part that I would really hope there'd be a fence on.
Okay.
Okay, we noted that. Anything else, Mr. Wilson?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you for participating. All right, members of council, any comments or questions at this point? I think Councillor Ritchie and then Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through to the planner, Mr. Robinson. The environmental lands, who's going to own those? Is that going to go as part of the lot then? Anyways, can you answer that? Who
Mr. Robinson?
Certainly, through your worship to the councillor, that's correct. They are the lot lines actually go back through those that area. That's correct.
Follow on.
And can you just explain the vegetation, like the tree cover? Is it hardwood? Is it softwood? Can you go in there and log that at a stage, or do you need permission to do that, or what's the status on that?
And I just add to that, Mr. Robinson. So would you be maintaining that part of the EP lands for any fallen trees or anything like that? So please answer that question.
Certainly, through your worship to the councillor, that area to the rear would be part of the lots. So as far as buildings and structures, it would be zoned environmental protection, so no buildings and structures would be permitted. In terms of forestry management, it would be really up to the lot owner. It would be the same as any other lot in the township that has any woodlands associated with that or any trees associated with that. It would be really up to the owner to maintain as they see fit or cut trees as they see fit in accordance with whatever bylaws are in place. But
Okay, Councillor Cabral.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Allen, through you to Mr. Robinson. Mr. Robinson, if you could just slide back to slide number 16, I think it would be easier. Thank you.
Sorry, which
slide number 3 of 16.
3?
And I'll apologize now because I'm going to be turning to face another screen here. But one of my concerns with this, and it's funny because you alluded to it earlier on with respect to the cul-de-sac, and I also noticed from one of the folks that wrote in, they also alluded to the original cul-de-sac design. And that was one of the aspects of this particular development that kind of caused me some concern. And the reason for that being is that Wilson is a very busy roadway. As a matter of fact, not long ago, the county took over a portion of Wilson over to County Road 26. And I don't know whether or not there's any designs in the future. That may be something that someone on staff might be able to provide. But my concern is that the distance between Hendry Road, which is the first road, you can't see it on your drawing. It's further south from your location, but it's the first crossway there, all the way up to Horseshoe Valley Road at the north end, where Anton Mills is. There's 8 street entrances now in place there. And in the 1.3 kilometers from Horseshoe Valley Road to where your development is now, there's already 5 entranceways onto Wilson. And with this new one, it would be 6. And each one of these entranceways does provide a traffic conflict. Left-hand turns, right-hand turns, they're all going to be controlled or presently controlled by stop sign. Obviously, yours, as in the drawing, would also be controlled by stop sign. So I do have some concern about that, and I questioned why the cul-de-sac was moved out, because it also presents an opportunity for people who are traveling northbound on Wilson who live on Luella to not bother going up and then backtracking to Luella. I could see them all making left-hand turns onto this new street and then cut through to Luella. So I'm wondering whether or not that might be something that could be revisited. I do understand staff in the fire department did kind of make a recommendation to take it out. I was going to ask you if that might be considered a premium lot with a cul-de-sac, but that would be one of my concerns right there. I don't know if Chief Kirk is on the line. If there was a specific reason that you couldn't have the cul-de-sac, or whether it was just a preference, because from a traffic standpoint, I see problems with having it open all the way through for the small number of houses that are going to be on that stretch of roadway.
Let me start with Planner Russell, and then we'll go to Chief Kirk.
Maybe I could.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Mr. Robinson, do you we'll start with Mr. Robinson first?
Thank you, Worship. The comments are noted. I think those are comments that would be appropriate to refer to staff for consideration as part of a recommendation report. You can certainly seek a comment from staff tonight if you wish, but it's something I think that probably requires some review and consideration. We'd be happy to enter those discussions with your staff moving forward.
Yes. Planner Russell, do you want to make any comment now, or or bounce it over to Chief Kirk?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Allen. Really, this was discussed a number of years ago and sort of has been bounced around a few different times. There's three sort of main reasons why the road connection has been recommended by the municipality. The first is residents, new residents in this area would not be pushed through the existing subdivision, and those existing residents wouldn't have to deal with new vehicular movements in front of them along the Wella Boulevard. Secondly, and the mayor's picked up on this as well, is the life safety component related to emergency services. And this goes back to discussions with the former fire chief, where in some cases where 30 seconds in a life safety situation can make the difference, it was recommended that the additional entrance be provided. Secondarily, if say the stub along Luella Boulevard becomes blocked for some reason, there is a secondary access for the fire department and for emergency services to reach these people. And finally, through discussions with the director of public works and with respect to the snow clearing program, the township prefers not to have cul-de-sacs where possible, as this creates additional cost to the township with respect to snow clearing. I believe we usually go in 2 or 3 times a year to cul-de-sacs to actually truck snow out, and it does become costly. So where we can and where it's possible, we are seeking that those through roads and through connections.
Okay, I'll go to Chief Kirk, then Councillor Ma.
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Cabral. I do agree with Planner Russell's remarks in regards to life safety. The only other issue I would have is with cul-de-sacs. Typically, they're very hard to get our trucks turned around. So that would be the only thing I would add to Planner Russell's comments.
Okay.
I have an opportunity for follow-on there, Mayor Allen.
Yes, go ahead, Councilor.
I just was curious. I did allude to the fact that the county had taken over Wilson. I'm just curious if staff might be able to provide any kind of insight as to whether or not the county has any designs on Wilson, this particular stretch.
Planner Russell, do you have information on that, or will that be coming out in the report?
At this time, Mayor Allen, I do not have any information from the county.
Okay, we will take that and do further research. Councillor Ma.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Actually, Planner Russell answered my question. Mine was going to be about the snow removal. A through road would be better for the snow removal than a cul-de-sac. So he did answer it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all who participated in the public meeting with respect to this proposed zoning amendment and proposed draft plans of subdivision, and for showing an interest in this matter. Thank you, Mr. Robinson. I'll let you depart. Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much, members of council and your worship. Appreciate it.
Next, we have a ZB 220-014 by C. Phillips, Celeste Phillips Planning, Inc. on behalf of Stone Manor Operating Corporation. Welcome, Ms. Phillips. I'll now call upon the clerk to confirm notice of this meeting and the dates on which notice was given.
Notice of this public meeting was mailed on the 23rd day of November 2020 to the owner of the subject lands and to the assessed owners of 66 properties in the township of Springwater within 120 meters of the area to which the proposed amendment would apply, and to all persons and public bodies as prescribed under the Planning Act and its regulations. Notice was also posted at the assessed property to which the proposed amendment applies at a location that was visible from Trail Boulevard. The notice was also placed on the township website.
And has the planning department received any correspondence in response to this public notice?
Correspondence has been received from the Ministry of Transportation in an email dated November 24th, 2020, as well as Canada Post in a letter dated November 24th, 2020.
Thank you. I'll now call upon Ms. Celeste Phillips to give a brief explanation of the purpose and effect of the proposal. Council members and the public can follow along with the presentation, which has been included in the agenda. Ms. Phillips, welcome.
Thank you. Hi.
Aye.
Sorry for that delay. I was just waiting to be invited to the meeting. I'm going to now share my screen.
Good. We can see that.
Perfect. So thank you, Mayor Allen, members of council, staff, and members of the public. My name is Celeste Phillips. I'm a land use planning consultant. I'm here to speak to you this evening on behalf of Stone Manor Operating Corp. And there are two requests that form part of the application this evening. The first is a revision to the draft approved plan. And the second is to request an increase in lot coverage by 5%. I can't seem to advance my slides here. There we go. So in terms of the location of the property, these lands are located in the northeast part of Centre Vespra. They're identified on this slide in yellow. The property is west of Dobson Road, north of Sunnydale Road, and consists of about 10.5 acres. These lands have for some time been known legally as Block 349 on Registered Plan 51M1065. And this is phase 4 of Stone Manor Woods subdivision. In May of this year, Springwater Council approved a 48 lot subdivision for these lands. These are all single detached lots. And as part of the application tonight, the request is to make what we call red line revisions to an existing draft plan. So this slide shows the request that's being made to reduce the number of lots by 1 to allow the development to proceed with 47 single detached lots, which are shown on this slide. So the owners wish to construct the same housing style and type for this final phase of Stone Manor Woods. The existing phases of Stone Manor Woods have lot depths that range from about 38 meters to 45 meters. But because of the configuration of this last phase of development, the lot depths are actually about 5 meters shallower than in all previous phases. And this makes it difficult to construct the same housing types and conform to the township zoning bylaw. So as a way to resolve this concern, Stone Manor Operating Corp is asking for council support to eliminate 1 lot. So that is to reduce the total number of lots from 48 to 47, and to allow an increase in the maximum lot coverage from 35% to 40%. And as council is aware, the definition of lot coverage in your bylaw is a little bit different than in some others, in that all structures are calculated into lot coverage. So the bylaw for the township says that the percentage of the lot area that is covered by buildings, and that includes structures, any structures above ground, as well as balconies, which are less than 2.5 meters above the finished grade. So those are all included in your lot coverage definition. And so that makes it a little bit difficult to develop these lots with the same house style that already exists. The zoning is already in place for these lands. It was approved back at the time that the 48 subdivision plan was approved. And there are no changes being proposed to the zoning schedule itself. The request really is to just change that lot coverage percentage. So the lot sizes would still be as always envisioned, which is frontages of 42 feet, 52 feet, and 62 feet. No amendment is required to the official plan to allow for the requests that are being made this evening. The important point, I guess, to make is that all other standards of the zoning bylaw can be met. That's side yard setback, front and rear yard setback. The only request being made to the zoning standards is to increase the lot standard for the R1 48F and the R1 48G zones, which you'll see at the bottom of this slide, to change that maximum lot coverage to 40%. In support of these two requests, that's the reduction of the number of lots and that slight increase in lot coverage, there has been 2 submissions made, a planning opinion provided by me, as well as correspondence from the project engineer. And his correspondence indicates that there are no concerns from a stormwater management perspective arising from the increase in the lot coverage. And finally, I would offer my opinion to council that these requests are consistent with the provincial policy statement and in conformity with the growth plan, the county official plan, and the township official plan. And I'd ask for council's favorable consideration this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. I'll now call upon the moderator to provide the number of people who have registered to ask questions or make comments regarding this application.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. There are no commenters registered to make an oral submission with regards to this application.
Thank you. Do any members of council have questions or comments regarding this application? Councillor Ma and then Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I just have one question. On the left side where the center Westford boundary and the Dobson Road boundary, sorry about my dog, is there a buffer or a fence?
Ms. Phillips?
Through you, your worship, to Councillor Ma, are you talking about this section here? As in terms of a buffer, this is the hydro corridor, which separates the settlement boundaries of Center Vespra from the more rural lands to the north.
I think she mentioned Dobson Road, so it might be the other side.
I'm sorry. So Dobson Road, yes, when council approved the draft plan of 48 single detached lots, there are no lots that front onto Dobson Road. And in fact, there's a linear stormwater management facility in this area that separates the road from the rear of those lots.
Follow on?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just one last question. Once phase 4 is completed, does that complete all of Stone Manor development?
Yes, it does.
Okay, Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. We can disregard. I answered my own question looking at the slides.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just curious, if we increase the size of homes or lot coverage, what happens then when somebody wants to build a deck or do something on their land? Are they going to have to come for a variance every time?
Ms. Phillips first, I'll go to.
Through you, Mayor Allen, to Councillor Moore. I think that there has been that situation in the township, maybe in a couple of instances in this subdivision. So what is being proposed here, that increase from 35 to 40%, gives enough room for the same housing style to be built, as well as associated decks. And I think you've probably seen a couple of applications in the past where there has been some folks that would like larger decks that may have resulted in an overage of that 35%. But I'm confident that this 40% provides a sufficient lot coverage standard to allow that to happen.
Okay. I don't see any other cards. So thank you to all who participated in the public meeting with respect to this proposed zoning bylaw amendment and for showing an interest in this matter. Thank you, Ms. Phillips, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Same to you.
Can I have a mover and seconder to adjourn the public meeting, please? Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Ma Chapman, that this public meeting of council held under section 34 and 51 of the Planning Act for applications 220-012 and SU 220-001 by J. Robinson on behalf of Springwater Development Corporation and ZB 220-014 by C. Phillips, Celeste Phillips Planning Inc. on behalf of Stone Manor Operating Corp. does now adjourn at 7:18 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Direction following the public meeting, which is item 4.1 in the agenda. Can I have a mover and seconder to receive the first direction, please? Councillor Ritchie, Councillor Moore. That council, having held a public meeting in accordance with sections 34 and 51 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, as amended on applications by Springwater Development Corporation regarding SU 220-001 and ZB 220-012, having noted correspondence and input received, direct that the application be referred back to staff. All those in favor? That is carried. A mover and seconder for the next direction, please. Councillor Moore, Councillor Cabral. The council, having held a public meeting in accordance with section 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, as amended on a zoning bylaw amendment application ZB 220-014 by Stone Manor Operating Corporation, having noted correspondence and input received, direct that the application be referred back to staff. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Phillips. We'll let you go now. I'm going to go back because we did not cover question period beforehand, before we get to the delegations. Question period offers people who want to pose a question the ability to send it in to the clerk by noon of the day of the meeting, or make a request to be able to appear virtually to pose a question. Clerk Ainsworth, were there any questions that were submitted?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. There have been no submissions for tonight's meeting.
Thank you. So we're moving back to item 5.1, deputations and presentations. And we now welcome the County of Simcoe, Ms. Jane Sinclair, General Manager, Health and Emergency Services, Chief Andrew Robert, Director-in-Chief of Paramedic Services, Don Hipwell, the Director of Procurement, Fleet and Property from Simcoe County, and Rob Knight, who is an architect with Ted Handy and Associates, who are joining us electronically to make a delegation about the Simcoe County Paramedic Services Springwater Post Partnership. Welcome and proceed, please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jane Sinclair, General Manager of Health and Emergency Services for the County of Simcoe. And we are very pleased to be here tonight to provide a presentation to you on our paramedic services station development. And as Your Worship mentioned, I'm here with Andrew Robert, Don Hipwell, as well as our architect from Ted Handy, Rob Knight. So I'll start. Next slide, please, and just give you a quick overview. We're going to just provide a very quick overview of our strategic facility plan, and then talk a little bit about the hub and post model, and then talk about the partnership approach with Springwater and our exciting plans that we're looking forward to moving forward with in the new year.
Thank you, General Manager Sinclair. I'll say to council, please let them present the presentation, then we'll have questions, discussion after. Thank you. Go ahead.
Very good. So just to set the context for our presentation, just wanted to very briefly talk about our strategic facility planning process. Back in 2001, at that time, there were 7 different paramedic services across the region, across the County of Simcoe. And with that, there was no standard approach. There was no single system design for paramedic services facilities. And so the station locations and the configuration of the stations varied. And with that, there were opportunities for improvements and to address some deficiencies. And all of the stations at that time were leased as well. So as part of our asset planning process at the County of Simcoe, in 2008, we engaged Deloitte Consulting to come in and do a review of our stations across the area and provide us with some recommendations. And there was really 4 key areas that they looked at through that review process. One was the actual model or type of stations that were in operations. And with that, they provided some recommendations because of the geography, the population base, and the variances across the region. They recommended a hybrid model, which is called a hub and spoke model, and Chief Robert will talk a little bit more about that later on in the presentation. And they also talked about in the recommendations opportunities for efficiencies both from an operational and from a financial perspective. So looking at response time, improving efficiencies, considerations of different types of service, tiered response, the impact in our facility model planning as well. And from a financial perspective, there were recommendations around partnership opportunities, and also moving from a lease model to an ownership model with long-term financial benefits. So that kind of set the stage in terms of establishing a 10-year long-term asset plan for our facility model. So with that, I'll turn it to Chief Robert to talk further about the hub and post.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. So the hub and spoke model speaks to a large hub facility, which encapsulates a number of facilities, such as it's placed in an area of high demand and high frequency of calls, high population density, and it is used to provide a place for staff to report to and a number of amenities, which I'll get into, and then the staff will disperse from there into the community to the various posts. And it's the posts themselves are smaller facilities that can be easily squeezed into many communities to help us provide better coverage with less disruption to neighborhoods. And it's very flexible and scalable, so that if more settlements come or if more density occurs, we can add a small post and add more staff to report to work at the hub, and we can keep service going without a lot of additional building. So the type I was starting to speak to, the one type of facility that we have is the operational hub. Currently, we have that built in the city of Barrie in partnership with the city of Barrie on Fairview Drive, and it's a very large. It's the largest facility we have. It places. It's in the middle of where we think we need the posts. It's placed in relation to where we need the posts to provide the coverage, it may in fact contain a response post. In our case, this does also have a response post within it. It's a larger facility where a number of staff will report to work. We need parking, lockers, showers for all those staff to come and go from their shifts. It also is a strategic facility for our entire system design. We centralize all our logistics staff there. The equipment that they manage. They do vehicle repair and maintenance there. We warehouse all our supplies and distribute from there to all the stations across the county. We have training facilities there, and our public access defibrillation program is based out of there with their supplies and training equipment. One of the other facility types we have is the post. So this goes along with the hub. It's a very small facility. Typically very small. It can be various sizes, but it's meant to be put into the communities to have paramedics stationed in the communities and be close at hand for response time and emergency coverage across the area. They're placed in the area of call demand and as part of the network of posts and the hub. And it can be small because it doesn't require staff parking, lockers, equipment, supplies, storage, a number of those facilities, no locker rooms, etc. And then the typical station, which you might normally think of, which is moderate size. We have various sizes of stations across the county of Simcoe. They're usually placed in the community settings, close to where the call demand is, ideally. And they do have staff report to work at those stations. There's showers, there's parking, there's storage rooms, etc. So we went over the three types of facilities that we have in our hybrid station design model. So this is a representation, and it's an old one. This is actually going to be updated. We have engaged a consultant to help us best place our stations and hubs and our posts. So this represents really an older version in that, and the new version is going to be coming out very shortly. But you can see in the top left here, site 1 represents the spring water post, and it is located in the general area of Highway 26 in Snow Valley Road. And you can see there's a network of posts that are meant to span around the area surrounding the high density area of Barrie. It's high density for calls and for population. And so it's part of a network, and the hub is placed on the map here. Like I say, this was an earlier depiction of the spread of the posts before we knew the location of the hub. So we've updated that, and that'll be coming out shortly. And this is a representation of the post on a lot, on the lot that in question. So I'll let Don speak a little bit more to the property specifics, but you can see on a large piece of land that you have depicted for use within the township. We have staked out a portion in purple here with some shared driveway space where the hub would be, our post would be located, so that we'd have quick access out to support the Midhurst and Southern Springwater area. This is an elevation depicting what the post would look like. This is our concept design right now. And with that, I'll ask our Director of Procurement, Fleet and Property, Don Hipwell, to talk a little bit more about some of the details of the partnership and the opportunities.
Thank you, Andrew. I hope you can hear me. I'm not sure if my camera is operating there. I don't see myself on the screen, but I was able to hear you, Andrew, so I'll carry on. I can see the slides.
We see you and hear you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. So I'm just going to speak to some of the history on the partnership that's been going on since early 2018 with former CAO Brindley and now with CAO Schmidt and the township team. We've been working alongside monitoring your progress in procuring the land from the MNRF. I know it's been a long process, and I believe that recently it's been technically finalized, and that's wonderful, good news. So the next steps that we've identified, and we do meet with the team weekly to discuss and keep things rolling along. We've got the size of our piece of the property that we'll be acquiring from the township needs to be finalized. So we're working on the design with Mr. Knight on that and the team. We've also recently started looking at setbacks and the entrances and things like that. So we're finalizing that site plan design. We do need to get a survey of the land that we will be acquiring completed. We recently had some geotechnical work done on this site, and we need to get the land that we're going to be purchasing valued. And I know that you have an appraised value on the site, so we'll be working with the team there on concluding that value. We did get permission from the province to enter the site and do the geotechnical work, so they've been helpful and working with us on that. In terms of efficiencies and in the partnership, we see opportunities for both capital and operational efficiencies. We are sharing due diligence reports you've shared with us, and we are certainly willing to share all of our due diligence reports with you. We know that we'll be sharing costs on the entranceway, the main entranceway, on signage, and eventually on building and property maintenance contracts as you develop your site. And in terms of the water and wastewater services in the future, there's an opportunity there in the future for that. Next slide, please. In terms of the timing, as Chief Robert mentioned, we do have 2 leased properties currently, one at the top of Bayfield Street and one on Tiffin Street in Barrie, and they are quite costly. And as we're moving to an ownership model, we are looking to move ahead on the new posts as soon as possible. We are planning to tender both the Barrie East post, which is ready to go. We have approval from the City of Barrie to start construction there on Ross Street in Barrie, and this post. We're going to be tendering them both upcoming in January, and we hope to start construction as soon as possible, likely with the Barrie post first, and then hopefully soon after with the post in Midhurst. We are aware that the acquisition of the land is not final, and therefore we are working with the CAO and the team there, as well as the MNRF, to seek permission to enter and start construction if possible, because the paperwork on the property may take 8 or 9 months, we understand, and we would certainly like to tender and build both posts at the same time, because there will be potential order of magnitude savings if we can do both at once, or at least with a staggered schedule. And I already mentioned the lease payments on the existing station, so those will cease as soon as we can move into these first 2 posts. And that's everything. And we would welcome any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hannah first, Councillor Ritchie next.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the county paramedics for considering this. I think this is a positive thing for Springwater and Simcoe County. It's efficient, effective utilization of our tax dollars, so I definitely support that. I wouldn't mind going back to the slide with you where you have the map, if you could, please, and it shows the little back one. I think the one that shows the layout, if you like, of the site. That's the one. That purple area, that square, I believe that's the area you're considering. I can't identify it.
Yes, I think that is the proposed area. Now, this is, I mean, we were talking about this before today, earlier. We have to decide location of what's going to be where on the whole site, but go ahead with your question, Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, because my question would be, I wouldn't be one of the people supporting where the recreation center and so on is going that close to Bayfield Street, because I think we all realize that being close to Bayfield Street is not a necessary requirement for the recreation center. And I just want to make sure our folks from the county understood that, because personally, I see that as an opportunity for potential commercial, if you like, and not where the recreational center would be placed. So I just want to make sure our county folks are aware of that. But the other question I have, being in this close proximity to our fire service, would there be a potential opportunity to be more efficient, if you like, not suggesting it's not efficient now, but be more efficient, so with our tiered responses, so we can maybe avoid some future duplication of fire and ambulance services responding to the same type of call? That's my question.
Okay, let me first, that's those 2 questions. So I'll address the first question to CAO Schmidt to comment on, and then whoever wants to take the second part from county.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Hannah and members of council. So the site plan that you have here is conceptual. It's not set in stone. Essentially, we needed to come up with a conceptual plan for the EA process as we were walking through that with the MNRF. Really, the only 2 items on that site plan whereby, for the most part, we've determined location needs to be where they are proposed on the map are the EMS post and the fire station. Essentially, everything else on that property is subject to the design and in the visioning exercise that we spoke of earlier this evening.
Okay, and whoever wants to take the second part of the question from county, please.
Your worship, we'll have Chief Robert speak to the tiered response component.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you through your worship. You know, we're very open to talking about opportunities to avoid unnecessary tiered responses if we're in the station and close at hand, and we know that that's a volunteer service there. You know, we would probably, if we're in the area, we'd beat them there. Certain types of calls, we still might want all hands on deck, we're very willing to explore opportunities to make things more efficient and effective and make sure resources are available where and when required. One of the things we do, we are hoping to work with our colleagues at Dispatch, which is operated by the Ministry of Health, is to look at some level of situational awareness where currently tiered response is based on the needs of the patient and not the placement of the resources. So we could be on top of the call, yet tiered responses are still sent because there is no level of awareness as to the proximity of the various resources to the call. So if there's any opportunity to bring some of that technology into play and be more efficient with the use of resources, we're certainly open to supporting that and working with our colleagues in fire to best address any of those opportunities.
Thank you. Follow on.
Thank you, and I appreciate the responses, and I'm just excited to see that we're able to bring both of these services together when we have so much development that's going to be taking place in this part of the township. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just to follow on with Councillor Hanna there, I've asked this question before and I don't feel I got it answered, but I'll ask it again to the county staff. Like in my second term, when we were looking at a fire hall, we ended up canning it or putting it on hold for this to come available. At that time, though, we were looking at putting the paramedics and the fire department together like they did in Clearview. Can somebody, what happened to that idea? It was supposed to be to share efficiencies, to share cost efficiencies. What happened to that?
County, Jane?
Through your worship. So I can maybe speak to that, and I'll look to my colleagues to add any additional information. Certainly we work closely with other emergency responders, and we are always looking for opportunities for operational efficiencies and otherwise. In this particular case, there's been a lot of moving parts with our development of our paramedic services facility plan, and the timing has realigned a couple of times. At this particular juncture, there's some timing issues that are impacting our ability to co-locate in an individual facility. We do need to move forward in the near future, and we're hoping to move forward in the spring of 2021. There's a couple of other considerations as well in terms of our proposing and building a single facility location. And one has to do with expansion. So part of our planning with this hub and spoke model and in Springwater, though we're moving forward with a single bay post location, we want to ensure we have the ability to expand that facility with any future growth potential. So that's a consideration in terms of the actual physical structure. And then, the most recent that's really impacting our whole facility design is around what we've experienced as healthcare providers through the pandemic. And one of the successes we've seen in our past partnerships is the ability to share common spaces in joint ventures. And I think COVID and the pandemic and the infection prevention and control processes have really changed the way we look at our operations and our capital planning. And so opportunities to share common spaces such as locker rooms and eating facilities, et cetera, are not deemed the ideal going forward when we have to have such strict in the healthcare component, such strict precautions around wearing masks and other types of provisions. So, there's a number of factors that are impacting this particular development, and has led us to look at building a standalone facility, but certainly in partnership with Springwater on the same property. And there may be other types of efficiencies from working together with these developments around water, wastewater systems, et cetera. And perhaps Ms. Hipwell could elaborate on potential efficiencies that we may garner from this joint partnership.
Thank you, Ms. Sinclair, and through your worship. Yes, and I believe I touched on, I didn't get into great detail earlier with regard to capital and operational cost savings, but we do focus a great deal on that as we move forward. And really, as the site is developed, in terms of capital, we'll be looking at sharing entrance costs, signage at the road, and of course, many operational contracts on site, from property maintenance in terms of snow clearing, grounds maintenance, window cleaning, HVAC systems, pest control, mats, everything that you would think of in running buildings. We have the potential to partner in, and we're actually going through that right now with the City of Barrie at the hub. There's a multitude of opportunities for savings. So I believe there will be savings in the end. It's just the timing of this. We need to move forward fairly quickly. And these savings will be part of the operational coming on of your facilities at that later time. So I think there are many opportunities there, and we'll be certainly hoping to work with you on those. Thanks.
Follow on, Councillor Ritchie.
What size of a building are you talking about as one, and two, the size of land that you're wanting to purchase?
I can take that question. Thank you. This particular facility, I'm going to say it's 1,100 square feet. I believe that's the last drawing I looked at, Rob. It might be slightly larger. It's not a large building. And we typically look at acquiring an acre of land for these posts to accommodate that additional bay, as Chief Robert mentioned. And also our particular way of driving the vehicles in onto the site and driving through into the bay and then exiting out the front. So we need a fairly wide turning radius there, as well as parking for supervisor and staff on site.
Continue, Councillor Ritchie.
Yes, I just want to go back to our previous conversation. I don't think there's anything there in the comments you've stated that good planning couldn't solve as far as that goes. And of course, anything when you're dealing with government, it's studied to death. But I don't think there is anything that could have been figured out where it all could have been underneath one roof. And I'll leave it at that. But having said that, if you guys are in such a rush to get in there and build, what are you going to do for sewer and water? Like, you're going to have to put your own septic system in and drill your own well. So
that's correct. That is the plan, and we understand that water and wastewater may be sometime. So we are planning to do that at the outset.
Thank you.
When you referred to expansion, Jane, in the discussion, let's look down the road and think of expansion past or in addition to this hub, this post. Is that what you call it, a post? This post. Would you be thinking of a separate post in Springwater or expanding this post that you're referring to now on this site?
Well, I think both of those options are always a consideration depending on what the growth projections yield. But in terms of a single post, there may be an ability with the post itself to add another bay, for an example, a second bay, should that be required. It's really dependent on what we see in terms of the growth trending, the call volume, the call areas, et cetera. But that certainly was one point of discussion in our planning around potential growth in future.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. We're all very excited about it, and we understand your anxiousness to get going, just as we are anxious to get going with the development, the initial development of the Hasty Tracks property. So we look forward to continuing to work together. And thank you for coming or being available to make this presentation tonight. And we wish you all a Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Same to you.
I just want to tell everybody here, shout out to Jane and her staff. She's done amazing things with the COVID breakouts and the different county seniors facilities. And I'm sure you're looking forward to a bit of a break, which hopefully you'll get over the holidays. But you and your staff have done a stellar job, just really, really quite something.
Thank you for your kindness. Thank you.
Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder to receive this delegation, please? Councillor Hanna and Councillor Ma, that the delegation from the County of Simcoe regarding the Simcoe County Paramedic Services Post partnerships with Springwater be received. All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to 5.2, our next delegation is from the Barrie Kennel Club request for overnight camping, Tree Nursery Sports Park. We have Ms. Carol Bench, the show chairperson, joining us electronically. Ms. Bench, please proceed with your presentation.
Hello, Your Worship and councillors and anybody else. And it's my last name is Brech, B-R-E-C-H.
Sorry, we had a typo here, so I apologize.
That's okay. Please bear with me. I've never talked in front of a council people before, so if I miss something or I do something, I apologize ahead of time. So my name is Carol Brech. I'm with the Barrie Kennel Club, which runs in Simcoe County. The club has been around for over 50 years. It runs all sorts of dog activities, from conformation to obedience, to agility, to sprinter, to workshops for the general public, you know, how to care for your dogs. We go into seniors' homes. We've done library presentations. And every year the show puts on a dog show on the August long weekend. We did do one last year at Tree Nursery Sports Park. It was run very successfully. We did have overnight camping for the weekend. So we apply again, obviously not for 2020, things have changed. We're applying for the show site for the August long weekend of 2021, which we would want from July the 29th until August the 3rd. For a confirmation show. Now I know these are trying times, things can change, but we're applying for it in advance, hoping that this COVID thing comes around and things somewhat go back to normal. I guess I'll explain a dog show if people don't know what a dog show is. You come and you present your dog to a panel of judges over a 3-day period. Judges in the past have been international judges, judges in Canada that come and judge these dogs. We have about 350 to 400 dogs entered. So each one of those dogs potentially has a handler. We get people from across Canada. We've had them from the States. Obviously this year will be different because the border closures and stuff. We've had international people come over and show their dogs. When the show was run last year, we presented the township with a map of how we would put out the camping and how the facility was going to be used. It was, like I said, it was run very successfully. The township we talked to afterwards said they were very pleased how we had run it. We had how we had cleaned up. It was left how it was when we went there, if not maybe even better. So what we're asking is that the township allow an amendment for this weekend only. So it would be just for us. Anybody else that would want to use the park would have to ask for their own permission, but we're just asking for an amendment for the August long weekend for the Barrie Kennel Club to have overnight camping at the show site.
Okay.
Do I need to say anything else?
Well, we'll open up for discussion. This is the sort of thing we would need to get a report from a little more background, a little more detail, consider all the details, and I think that's probably what's going to arise from this. But I will get a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please. Councillor Ma Chapman and Councillor Ritchie, and open it up for questions or discussion. Councillor Ma Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I would just like to make an amendment, maybe to refer back to staff to get for more information, and just with the COVID happening, and this would be a gathering, we don't know where we'll be in the middle of 2021. So I'd like to make an amendment to refer to staff to seek more information.
Okay, and do we have a seconder for that amendment, please? Councillor Moore, Councillor Ritchie, question?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Two questions. Who's going to oversee security of the camping? One, and two, who cleans everything up? That's the two questions. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Through me, please, Ms. Breck. Appreciate the fact that we will get all this detail in a report flushed out. But Ms. Breck, how did you handle security and cleanup last year? 220. I mean, this year.
Okay, Your Worship. We didn't have a show this year, of course, because of COVID. So the show that we did have was in 2019.
Yeah.
We have a head of camping on the in our membership, which happens to be my husband, Peter, who is now a retired OPP officer with the detachment in Aurelia, their headquarters, who does the camping and make sure all camping is paid for in advance. So we do know how many people are coming. It's not you just show up and you get a camping spot. It's already prepaid for. We have, the lots are predetermined of a certain dimension. Now, of course, with COVID, I have talked to several other clubs, and I've seen several other clubs since September of 2020 run dog shows under the COVID precautions and run them very successfully with camping, with social distancing. Masks are worn at all times. We would make sure that the spots are a little bigger so that social distancing is certainly more to them. People come, they show their dog. If they're staying in the camper, they go directly back to their camper. Nobody is allowed to loiter around the show rings during the COVID. This is how we would keep doing it. And we have a plan of how the campers come in and how the campers leave through one of two ways. Through the normal way of when you come into the township and to the right, where you don't turn to the township, but you turn right into a parking lot. We take the campers around that way, and this way they do not interfere with the running of the township office on the Saturday. Or the other suggestion is to open up the entrance for the winter time and have the campers come up behind the soccer fields and into the parking lot, and then proceed them into the camping spots. As for the cleanup, the club did all of the cleanup, was required, and we did all the cleanup. We made sure the garbage was picked up, it was put away, it was disposed of. There is baggies for everybody to go around to picking up dog poop if this happens. The club also went and made final looking around and cleaned up. And to my knowledge, the township or the people that had been involved in this had no complaints whatsoever with how the show was run and how the grounds were left when we departed.
Okay, thank you. So I think the motion on the floor is to receive this and have it be referred to staff for a report. Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you, I have drafted a referral as per Councillor Chapman's request that the request from the Barrie Kennel Club be referred to staff, and that staff report back to council with considerations for overnight camping in Tree Nursery Park, as well as other requirements of the show.
Okay, all those in favor? That is carried. And you have to read the main motion? No. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Breck.
Thank you, your worship, councillors, and everybody else for listening to me.
Thanks. Have a good Christmas.
You too, sir.
Okay, next we're moving on to 5.3, which is Galibier Materials Inc. exclusive aggregate extraction rights and lease agreement. I now call upon Mr. David Kennedy from Galibier Materials joining us electronically relating to this and making a presentation. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Allen and members of council. My name is David Wayne Kennedy, and I represent a corporation under the name Galibier Materials Inc. I guess we're having a bit of difficulty getting me on the screen here.
We can hear you though, so that's good.
Okay, I have submitted a company letter dated December 9th for tonight's presentation. And with the understanding that a staff report along with a copy of the proposed agreement would form part of the agenda. Since submitting my letter, I learned from staff that the report has been withdrawn due to the agreement needing a few minor changes to be deemed satisfactory to both parties. Therefore, I will explain some of the agreement tonight. The basics of my proposal is to pay a fixed fee of $25,000 per year for the lease portion of the agreement, plus a royalty fee of $1 per metric ton of aggregates that is removed from the licensed spring water pit located on lot 14, concession 9, Old Vesper Township, former Vesper Township, next door to our Galibier pit, which I'll bring up on the screen here right now if we can, to show you a sketch of that, which you do have. I sent with my letter of December 9th.
Got it.
Okay, you can see that.
That's one figure that I want to show you. That's not, okay. This is the overview of the spring water pit, the Galibier site, which consists of the Lewis pit, named the Lewis pit, Fred Lewis. Our research has concluded that the spring water pit has the potential to supply aggregates to the tune of 6 million metric tons. The drawing that I'll show you here next, called QU 1.1.
Figure 2.
It was provided by MTE Consultants with an estimate of those potential areas shown colored 1, 2, 3 of the site. Today, only area 1 of the entire 50-acre licensed site owned by Springwater has been applied for the approval to extract, with the balance of the resource yet to be applied for. Galibier Materials is willing to invest in obtaining the necessary approvals to expand the extraction area to preserve and protect those aggregate resources. As it stands today, with the license as is, our proposal could supply $65,000 per year in revenue for the township. Galibier's goal is to increase the tonnage rate so the potential revenue for Springwater Township could reach $125,000 per year. The long-term potential of this proposal, based on MTE's calculation, has the potential of supplying $7+ million Canadian dollars worth of revenue for the township of Springwater. This does not include the additional M&R fees that would go along with that for the portion that the township would receive. As in my December 9th letter, I am looking for council to consider our proposal and provide us with an answer. You do not have the benefit of seeing the agreement tonight because it was withdrawn. I understand why. So I'm asking for you to review the agreement, our proposal, and provide us with an answer.
All right, thank you, sir. Can I get a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Cabral and Councillor Moore. I'll turn it to CAO Schmidt. Can you give us, get us up to speed with respect to what work's gone on this and what's logically next steps to consider this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, members of council, I may have to defer this to our Director Coleman, as she's been directly involved with Mr. Kennedy. But preliminary discussions with Mr. Kennedy involved myself and Director Coleman, as well as the mayor, when the first proposal came forward, and the suggestion was to move forward and draft an agreement and bring something forward to council for consideration. Unfortunately, as Mr. Kennedy mentioned, we have yet to receive a final draft of the agreement from our legal counsel, and hence staff was not comfortable bringing forward the report and the agreement at this meeting. We are looking to bring forward both of those in January for the January 20th meeting. And if there's anything further that Director Coleman can provide, hand things over to her.
So there'd be a report at that time, obviously, inclusive of the agreement. Director Coleman first, please.
Yes, thank you, Marilyn. Through you to members of council. The agreement is, for all intents and purposes, we do have an agreement. It's just the final wording and the drafting that's being finalized at our lawyer right now. So basically, the goal here tonight is to have an understanding that council is interested, and staff can bring back the report. I believe it's our January 20th meeting, which is the next council meeting.
Okay, Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through to Director Coleman. Maybe in that report coming back, I'd be curious to know the number of tons that our pit is licensed for. I think that gentleman might have alluded to that, but I'd like to know the number of tons per year, what we're licensed for, and a little bit more information about our pit. Like, have we got a mixture of gravel and sand, or is it all sand? Like anything worthwhile having, it's nice to have on hand because there's a lot of pits running out of aggregate, and as we see more development develop, it's nice for us to have that. So I'm curious to know if you could answer those questions, please.
Okay, that's duly noted.
Sorry,
yes.
Mayor Allen, I can answer those now.
Okay, go ahead.
That pit on George Johnson Road is currently licensed for 45,500 tons per year. The material is more along the lines, I guess, of a winter sand or something similar to that. I guess council is very familiar with our gravel roads and the fact that we do put granular from our pits on the roads every year, but that material comes from our pit on Floss Road 10 East. That's that pit is where we get that the granular material that gets crushed on a yearly basis.
Okay, other comments now? So Clerk Ainsworth, you're making an amendment to this wording, please.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. This was already pre-scheduled for the January 20th meeting. So at this time, we only require to receive the delegation. The report will still be forthcoming.
Okay, we have a mover and a seconder for it. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
And the same to you, sir. Okay, we're moving on to section 7, minutes. Could I have a mover and seconder to get these on the floor, please? Councillor Cabral, Councillor Ma, are there any questions with respect to the minutes 1 to 6? Okay, these are the minutes of the special meeting of council November 23rd to 20. Special meeting of council closed session the same date. Minutes of the special meeting of council November 26th to 20, and the special meeting of council December 2nd to 20. The minutes of the special meeting of council closed session December 2nd to 20, and the regular meeting of council on December 2nd to 20. All those in favor? That is carried. Item 7.7, minutes of the boards and committees and organizations. Mover and seconder. Councillor Moore and Councillor Cabral. Any comments with respect to either of these? Councillor Cabral.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Allen. Just on reviewing the minutes for the Recreational Advisory Committee, I noticed on the minutes there at their, I believe, October, they're from October the 27th. Back in the spring, we as council looked at community gardens. And I think at the end of it all, we asked staff to have another look at the community gardening issue. And they were looking at doing a survey and whatnot. And I just noticed on here that the survey, I guess, was completed and it was shared with the Recreational Advisory Committee. I'm just kind of curious to know if that survey might have been provided to the council members as well, so we could have a look at what the residents of Springwater Township had to say. So that's the comment with respect to that particular set of minutes. I'm just wondering about that particular one.
Yes, I'm sure we could share that, CEO Schmidt.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely. I'll speak to staff and have that shared with members of council.
Thank you.
Okay, I got a mover and seconder. Yes, I did. So that the minutes of boards and committees and other organizations listed herein be received as information. The minutes of the Springwater Township Public Library Board, October 20, and the Recreation Advisory Committee meeting, October 27, 2020. All those in favor? That is carried. Correspondence items. There are no correspondence items. So item 9.1, we move on to action reports. Now, I presume we're pulling 9.2, the draft budget. Can mover and seconder to get these on the floor, please. Councillor Cabral and Councillor Ritchie. Any other questions or desire to pull any others of these? Councillor Moore?
Just for clarification, is this our opportunity to speak to 9.6?
Yes, it is. If you'd like to pull it or just ask a question.
I think we need to pull it.
Okay, we will pull that. 9.2 and 9.6. Okay, the other items are 9.3. So the motion is that the action reports items 7.2 to 7.11 be received, being 9.3, Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, ICIP, 9.4, Rogers Re-11, Robert Boulevard, 9.5, Street Pole Banner Policy, 9.7, Electronic Meeting Participation Council, Local Boards and Committees of Council, with the exception of 9.2, Revised Budget 221 Draft, and 9.6, Mix Station 2 Subdivision Agreement. Councillor Cabral. You're muted still.
The flagpole policy.
Pull that as well.
Yeah, would you please? I'd appreciate that. I missed it.
9.5 be pulled as well. So we're voting on 9.3, 4, and 7. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, starting with 9.2 revised draft 221 budget. The mover and seconder to get this on the floor. Councillor Cabral, Councillor Ma. I'll turn it over to CAO Schmidt to give us an update, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. So just a high-level summary of where things are at. So as you may recall, on November 18th, staff tabled the 2021 budget with council, which originally proposed a 1.8% property tax increase over 2020 for the township's portion of the tax bill. And when taking into account the county and the education portion, the actual proposed blended tax increase at that time was estimated to be 0.87%. In addition to this, staff and its service partners, the library and the Severn Sound Environmental Association, had proposed 12 program changes and our new initiatives for council's consideration. Since the tabling of the budget, council has held 5 budget deliberation meetings, whereby resolutions have been approved for consideration for inclusion in tonight's staff report. On November 30th, staff was directed by council to come back with a 0% property tax increase for 2021. And in addition, find funds to conduct an efficiency audit in 2021. So on December 7th, staff provided council with options as to how to arrive at a 0% property tax increase. However, this was not a recommendation from staff. It is an option for council to consider. So should council consider the approved 2021 budget as presented this evening, it does propose a 0% property tax increase for the township's portion of the tax bill. And again, when taking into account the county and education, the blended tax rate is currently estimated to be 0%. Further to that, the policing charge for 2021 has been rolled up into the overall property taxation calculations, and hence will no longer be shown as a separate charge on our property tax bills. And finally, the 2020 water and wastewater rate study was approved by council at your last meeting on December 2nd, which included a 2% increase in water rates for 2021 and 2022, as well as a 5% increase in wastewater rates for 2021 and 2022. That concludes my presentation for tonight, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions, comments from council? I am not going to be able to support this budget. I just have a few things to say. The council provided staff with budget parameters and directions in August 2020, instructing that the 2021 budget maintain programs and services and infrastructure at existing levels, assume reasonable assessment growth, and provide for a cost of living allowance based on the consumer price index to May of 2020 being 1.48%. Any service enhancements were to be presented as separate program changes.
Doesn't matter.
Pardon me? Oh, somebody's got their mic on. The draft budget originally tabled on November 18th contained staff recommendations proposing budget increases in taxes of 1.80 at the Springwater level, including the policing charge, which resulted in a 0.87 of 1% blended increase when combined with the Simcoe County and education portion of taxes. Putting this percentage increase into perspective, this equates to a $34.62 increase per year on average, based on average municipal property impact assessed house at $485,046, which is not the market value, but the assessed value. And generally assessed values are 60 to 90% of market value. Included in this budget is a 1% contribution towards the capital infrastructure, which we have been adding to reserves each year for the last 6 years. The draft budget also contained an additional 10 proposed program changes across the different departments as a result of the needs identified by staff, plus one requested by the Severn Sound Environmental Association. 4 councillors on council wanted to have a 0% tax increase in 2021 to save the $35 per average household per year. And the votes resulting in this forced the staff to go back and defer some capital plans in the draft budget to reduce taxes enough to get to 0%. They also wanted to shift some of the priority of the budgeted capital roads works to be done in 2021 compared to what staff had recommended based on the recent roads needs study which the township has commissioned. 4 of the program changes survived through the final budget presented tonight, plus the provision for a further efficiency audit to be done, as CAO Schmidt just reviewed. The $250,000 required funds for these to maintain a 0% increase are mainly coming from various township reserves. I can't support the budget because of a combination of factors. Springwater is growing and inflation exists at least a level of an estimated 1.5%. We, Springwater, had a tax decrease in 2020 at the township level that we approved of 0.25 of 1% due to efficiencies created at that time. With continuing growth and inflation in Springwater, I believe it's not fiscally prudent to disregard the recommendation of staff of a small increase of 1.8% netting out to 0.87% blended when it results in an increase of just $35 for the whole year of 2021 for the average assessed residents. Reducing this to 0 is just for optics when one sees that it amounts to this small a dollar amount. Most of the program changes recommended by staff are much needed for increased service needs, which we are experiencing. Some of the requested program changes can be deferred, and in place of those which are deferred, I believe we need to increase the budget amounts for roads maintenance and capital improvements to meet what is currently needed. Without the small increase originally planned, staff advises that the increase in property tax will be an estimated 6.2% or higher in 2022 and subsequent years. And lastly, residents who own are, in my discussions with them, are not expecting a 0% increase. And I believe the majority would question the fiscal prudence of doing this. So I will not be supporting the budget this year as it presently stands. Any other comments? Okay. Councillor Ma Chapman.
Thanks, Alan. I understand where the other councillors are coming from with the 0% increase and with COVID. I totally understand that. I totally understand where the staff is coming from with their blended tax. And I'm somewhere in the middle where I think we should have some increase because I think, as CO Smith said, down the road in the next couple of years, we will have probably a higher percentage increase because of our growth. And we need to have some kind of an increase each year to help with that growth. And I think there's residents in the next couple of years, when we do hit them with a bigger percentage, will have a higher say, a higher point of view. And I've had both residents come to me, they like the 0, and I've had more residents come to me not expecting a 0% increase. They're expecting something. And at $35 per year, which comes to about just shy under $3 per month. And I was just saying, sometimes at a percentage level, people don't understand. And at a dollar amount, they said, oh, okay, maybe $3 a month isn't too bad. So I'm in support of 0, but I'm not in support of 0 just due to our growth. So unfortunately, I cannot support the 0% increase either, or not increase.
Thank you. Councillor Hannah.
To be clear, I do understand the dollar amount, and going back to the original draft budget that was presented to council, it was 8.5%, I believe, plus another 3.5% for new hires and project changes. So we were talking originally somewhere around a 5% tax increase. But given all the issues with COVID-19, I think this is a responsible budget for those who understand the dollar amount and realize that a lot of folks out there they have enough problems without us increasing the budget. And I think we've come back with a a positive budget given the issues that are going on. And we're not the only municipality right now, if you follow the news, that are coming back with a zero tax increase for 2021. So I'm definitely supporting this.
Okay. All right. Let's, Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just wanted to back up to August, and it's quite true. We did sit and do that. And at that stage of the game, I think our numbers were under 100 for the number of infections daily. We're up to 2,000 now. And there's light at the end of the tunnel, but we don't know when that light is actually going to arrive here. I think it may be a situation where it may appear to be $35, but I have to say that there are people out there out of work. There are people out there that are struggling because of COVID-19. And to be quite frank, I think the residents are looking at us right now to see what council is going to do. And I have to agree with Councillor Hanna. I think this budget for this year does still move us forward. With COVID, a lot of our facilities are going to continue to be underused, and we're going to continue to not get the revenue that we traditionally would have gotten. So I think in that sense, this budget does address those concerns as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I just want to say that I agree in principle with what you're saying, Mayor Allen. I respect your business sense and the CAOs, but I feel like we're missing the human element. There is a real cry right now in our communities, and I think that we need to address it, we need to respect it and acknowledge it. And I think that we're doing that with this budget. We're not stopping the important projects from going forward. We were able to do some program changes, but I do think we have to acknowledge the time that we're in. And come next year, then we're going to have to look at the budget and see what's presented next year.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'm the one that brought this forward, and I'll be fully supporting this. Mayor Allen, I find it misleading when you say about the growth. I'm in my 10th year as a councillor, and this municipality is growing every year. The 10 years that I've been on it, and it will continue to grow until I get off it. And yet every year we've always found a way to manage and get along. We've bought new equipment. We've hired new staff. So like when I look at the budget, I look at new assessment, it's short of 300,000. If I look at the new assessment and I look at the government funding, and we already reaching and grabbing and already claiming that we're $3 million. What would happen if the government picked up the phone and said, well, you're not going to get some of this money this year? We'd be scrambling like anything to try it, but they didn't do it. I just think this year is a year that we're growing, and we will continue to grow. We'll see more new assessment next year as well too. In fact, while we're talking about that, this is 2020 is the end of the impact, and they're going to be reassessing. It'll be interesting to see how this new assessment comes online and it affects people as well. And we're a $47 million entity, and they only had to find $250,000 to find a 0% increase. I don't think we're asking for very much, and I think we're showing good leadership by doing this. And when I look around other municipalities, they're doing it as well too. But I don't care about the other municipalities. It's our municipality, and we can provide the same service. And hopefully with this new efficiency audit, it'll give us some guidelines as to what we should be doing with new hires. I support this board. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll go to vote. All those in, read the motion. So we have a mover and seconder, and that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding the revised draft 2021 budget dated December 16, 2020 be received, and that the revised draft 2021 consolidated budget as presented December 16, 2020 be approved, and that the 2021 tax rate bylaw be presented, including the county and education requisitions, as soon as the tax ratios have been approved by the County of Simcoe. All those in favor?
Recorded vote, please.
Okay. Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. When I state your name, please state yes or no. Councillor Cabral,
Yes.
Councillor Hannah,
Yes.
Councillor Chapman,
No.
Councillor Moore,
Apologies, yes.
Councillor Ritchie,
Yes.
and Mayor Allen.
Nope.
That motion is carried.
Okay, moving on to 9.5, street pole banner policy. Can I have a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Cabral, Councillor Moore. Councillor Cabral, you had a comment.
Well, thank you, Mayor Allen. The reason I wanted to kind of bring it up is I did have some thoughts with respect to the flowers and the banners. And I guess my concern is they're twofold. Number one, the way the policy is presently drafted, it seems that a lot of people and groups could request that banners go up and down, and it's going to rest with Parks and Rec staff to be putting the banners up and down too. So even though those are soft dollars, I just want to kind of make sure that we understand that it's our staff that are going to be putting these banners up and down. The other issue is that when it rolls around to summertime, traditionally Springwater in Elmvale here has had these lovely flowered baskets, and they usually put them up, I think, probably late May or early June, and they're there all summer long, and they're very inviting, they're vibrant. I get a lot of positive comments. I mean, personally myself, I think it's wonderful, but certainly the residents in town look forward to that, and a lot of positive comments, how inviting the street is with every street post having the hanging basket. I was kind of thinking along the lines that maybe during the summer months, the banners should not fly at the same time as we had the hanging baskets, but that might preclude some events that might have banners that are actually community driven, such as the sci-fi festival that happens in July. So I was kind of hoping that there might be a way or a mechanism for us to minimize the number of times that the banners would fly over the course of the summertime when the flowers were up. I know there might be an opportunity for alternating banners, and I know from discussion earlier in the day that we can hang both banners and flowers, but I also have to question the noise, the visual noise of both the flowers and the banners at the same time. I'm kind of thinking if the flowers were there predominantly over the course of the summer, and then of course we'd have banners from fall time when the fall fair flies right back up and through to May till the hangers went back up. So I'm kind of looking for something in the policy that would reduce the number of banners that might fly over the course of the summertime so that they don't distract from the hanging baskets we've traditionally had as well. So that's the comment I wanted to make with respect to the policy.
Okay, I'll just tack on to that. Do we do any banners with respect to the farmers market in the summertime along the lines of Councillor Cabral's talking about? Planner Belcourt?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through yourself, we have not recently done banners for the farmers market in downtown Elmville that I'm aware of. I know a number of years ago, probably about 6 years ago, there was a contest that the farmers market did run where local residents, I know even some township staff, participated in painting banners that were hung for the farmers market. But that was the last time that I'm aware of that the farmers market has done it at this point.
So just further to Councillor Cabral's comments about summer banners and vis-a-vis the flowers, what are your thoughts?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Through you to Councillor Cabral. I think he has a very valid point. The intention was never to hinder the flowers that Elmville traditionally would hang. We have had previous discussions internally with the Recreation Department specifically, and our thoughts were that we could possibly do banners and baskets alternating on posts depending on the uptake in that given year or what was scheduled. With that said, though, another option is, as Councillor Cabral noted, that the poles are able to accommodate both the banners and flowers. I do agree that this might be visually overwhelming, having every single pole with banners and flowers. And also, as you see, some of the baskets can get quite large throughout the summer, thanks to our great watering team in Springwater. And it may interfere with even viewing the banners when they're hung on the side with the flowers kind of in front. So my preference would be, or suggestion would be, alternating between the two, or as Councillor Cabral said, limiting it so that you're not able to hang banners. However, I do see that some events such as the Sci-Fi Festival or those that happen in the summer may not have the same opportunity that other events would have the rest of the year. I think the best compromise would be the alternating aspect.
Just
follow on, Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And I'm certainly, I'm in support of the banners. That's the strange thing about it. It really wasn't a realization until a little bit later on. And I had some discussion with Planner Belcourt about it. I'm just suggesting over the course of the summer, for our own community-driven events, which would be the sci-fi thing for the week or so that they might be building up to that. And also, if the BIA down the road does do what they were looking at doing, maybe a busker event or a busker thing, again, community-driven. What I'm trying to minimize, I guess, would be the other groups for whatever reason that might want to put up their own banners. For whatever any particular reason, there's ample opportunity through the rest of the year. So I'm just kind of trying to see if we might be able to minimize the number of banners so that there's not as much noise and not as much distraction, and but we could still accommodate our own spring water groups, like the community-driven ones that we have currently in Elmville. So I kind of would lean a little bit more towards that without cutting the sci-fi or another community activity that was coming up out from doing it, but certainly look to minimize, I guess, other groups in Springwater that would have an opportunity to fly their banners at other times of the year without doing it in the summertime, because the flowers really should be, I guess, a primary concern, because the people in Elmville really do look forward to that. The banners tend to be a bit of a new thing right now that we have the poles and we're putting them up in Remembrance Day. We're doing them seasonally at Christmas. We could do them seasonally again in the springtime for the Maple Syrup Festival, certainly at the fall time with the Fall Fair if they created some. But I'm trying to keep that window of the summer open for the beautification that the flowers bring to the Elmville main drag. That's my concern here. So I'm hoping that something might be arranged or accommodated that could allow that to happen.
Well, we'll certainly take that into consideration. So thank you for those comments.
Thanks.
So we have a mover and seconder for this. We got it on the floor. That the report from the planner regarding the street pole banner policy dated December 16, 2020 be received, and that council approve the street pole banner policy as presented. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on to 9.6, mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please. Councillor Moore and Councillor Ma. So I'll start with you, Councillor Moore, as you requested it be pulled.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. And I want to be careful, so I'll refer probably to the clerk. Our earlier meeting today, we weren't allowed to speak to one subject, but I want to make sure that E8 in the subdivision agreement we can speak to during this meeting.
Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you to Councillor Moore, that the draft agreement is included on the agenda, and as such is a public document at this time, so you may speak to that.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. So I wonder if I could ask CAO Schmidt then please to talk about E.8 in the spirit of transparency, and to let our residents know how that agreement came to be and the monetary value attached to that. Thank you.
CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to Councilor Moore and members of council and public. So it's my understanding that the matter E8, which pertains to Street A in the mixed subdivision, was part of the draft plan conditions. And so as part of the draft plan conditions, that Street A was to be considered on township property. So the township owns that portion of land, and essentially through the draft plan conditions, it was agreed upon that Street A for the mixed subdivision would be constructed on that piece of property. In lieu of doing so, compensation by the developer is required to be paid to the township. That compensation considered right now is in the amount of $350,000, which is my understanding is basically staff took a look at the appraised value of an acre of property in the area, most notably the community hub, and considered that as part of our calculation in determining the $350,000 for this piece of property. I'll leave it at that, Mr. Mayor, and if Director Spagnol and or Mr. Engel and or Mr. Ainley had any further comments, I'd be happy to have them comment.
Please comment if any of those individuals would like to. Director Spagnol.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I just would like to confirm that CAO Schmidt is correct that this was a condition of approval that was approved through the settlement through the OMB, and that aspect of the agreement is in line with the terms of the condition.
Okay. Councillor Cabral, then Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. When I was reading it over, this document, and I came across that, it really struck me as kind of strange that a developer would assume that they could put a road through municipal property. So I guess my question would be is, who actually agreed that that was something that the developer could do? When did that happen? And at what point in time did staff agree that it would be okay for township to be compensated for allowing them to use the property? And then the other question that comes to mind is, if the developers wanted that piece of property, why did they not simply approach the township and ask township for the ability to purchase it? I haven't seen any other developments that have come before council. I got to admit I'm new, so maybe this is something that's the norm. However, none of the other ones that I've seen do the developers put a road through municipal property. I would think that that would be something that at some point in time that the council would have likely had the opportunity to speak to decide whether or not that's something that they actually would have approved in the first place. And, you know, maybe council prior to the council we have right now did that, but I don't know that. And there's a couple of other things in this agreement that I'm struggling with. And I think it's a little bit difficult to digest 204 pages over the course of a few days and then be expected to make an informed decision on it, to be quite frank with you. But I do struggle with E8. I'm having a hard time with that one. And I just presented you the questions that I would like answered on that particular point.
Okay, I'll start with CEO Schmidt and then Director Spagnol. And then Mr. Engel, I see, is on the line too. So amongst the three of you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll defer that to either Director Spagnol or Mr. Engel, as I was not part of the negotiations of the draft plan conditions, so I can't really speak to that matter.
Mayor Allen, I can speak to the draft plan condition and how it arrived. And then, I will look for some further comment from Mr. Engel after that. There was an agreement struck between the municipality, which included conversations between Township Council, staff, the developers, and all the professionals that were involved at the time when the settlement was drafted. The conditions of approval with respect to the subdivision approvals were vetted through the process through council, and council decided on the settlement as is referenced within the conditions of approval by the Ontario Municipal Board back in 2014. So I can confirm that the matter of road connection for Street A was vetted through council of that date, through the OMB process and through minutes of settlement, and that those are the very same conditions that we have before council today. I will refer this over to Mr. Engel for further comment as well.
Mr. Engel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is an unusual circumstance, but I think what the conditions of draft approval that we're trying to create was just as Councillor Cabral had outlined, which is that they would be, in a normal course, they would buy the land, make it part of their subdivision, build the road, and then dedicate it to the municipality. But since it was already in the hands of the municipality, the condition came out saying, provide them with compensation, but there's no sense taking the land from the municipality just to hand it back again. So I think that is the intent, is that there's to be compensation as if they were acquiring the land only to turn around and rededicate it.
Okay. And the amount of $350,000, how was that arrived at?
I believe Director Spagnol and CEO Schmidt looked at land values in the area and some of the appraisal information they had, and applied that unit rate to the lands in question.
Director Spagnol, is that the exercise that happened?
Yes, Mayor Allen. The township had went through a process to go take a look at land values for service lands within settlement areas, within rural areas, to form a basis for what would be considered to be cash in lieu of parkland. And it's on the basis of those appraisals that were done that the land valuation was based on.
Okay, Councillor Hanna.
Thank you, Mayor. Looking at the report, it's not clear to me who wrote this report, whether it was done by the developer or planner or legal counsel or people in conjunction with each other. So I found that a little bit difficult, but it's, as mentioned, of 203 or 204 pages to go through to be prepared for the meeting and approve it today. It would have been nice to have had a staff report attached to this with setting out an executive summary, if you like, explaining to council what exactly we're asking to vote on and support here. So well, I think this is something that's been approved and I'm not objecting to it. I'm just suggesting that it would have been nice to have been aware of what the details were without having to go through the whole report to find it. When this was originally brought forward, I believe it was in 2014. I don't remember this being one of the conditions, but there were so many conditions to review. Quite possibly it was discussed at the time. I'm just saying I don't remember it. Perry Ritchie was around at that time. Maybe he can. So again, going forward, anytime we got something big like this, if we either get it in advance or B, an executive report going with it, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Thanks, Mayor Allen. I just want to confirm that when you compared the price for the property, you were comparing it to the hasty tract valuation that we had done. What was the date on that, if you can remember?
CEO Schmidt, you would know that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Moore. So the date of that would have been May of 2019. And further to Director Spagnol's comments, so we not only looked at the hasty tract, but we did look at the cash in lieu and parkland valuations that were completed as part of this process.
I guess my only comment really would be, and I trust your judgment, just that I would consider development property a different valuation than I would the hasty track forest. That's all.
Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. I don't know if this question's been asked. If it was, maybe I wasn't listening, but how much property are we talking about here anyways?
Director Spagnell.
Mayor Allen, I'd have to go back and just take a quick look at the draft plan just to see exactly what the acreage is. I can report back to that after I've had a chance just to flip through and find out and take a look at the draft plan.
I see Joe Mullen just joined us. He might have the answer.
Mr. Mayor, through the members of council, the strip of parcel we're talking about for Street A is basically 170 feet deep. The total strip is about 66 feet wide, or 66 meters wide, sorry, not feet. And obviously we're just putting a 23-meter road allowance through that, but it's about 170 meters deep and about 66 meters wide, the entire block, of which there'll be a 23-meter width road allowance going through and 170 meters deep. So the parcel that the road will be on will basically be 23 by 170.
Okay. Councillor Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just another comment. I have to reach back there to Mr. Engel and his comment that it was unusual. I mean, that's what I found about it. I thought it was real unusual to just see a $350,000 figure there and not know anything about it. However, I do question the figure of $350,000 because it's unusual. If that was privately held land and the developer wanted it, the developer would have paid an appraised value for it. And I think that if township is going to put a figure on that piece of property, it should be appraised for the purpose for which it is being acquired. Not necessarily based on, and no offense to the CAO or no offense to our director, Spagnell, but I don't know whether or not they're the appropriate people to assess a piece of property given its use to determine whether or not $350,000 is adequate compensation to the township. So I'm having a real hard time with this particular document, still do with that. And I would still like to know, even though it was back in 2014, was this process as a result of the Ontario Municipal Board hearing, or was this something that was put in place before the OMB hearing?
Director Spagnell.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through to Councillor Cabral. This was a result of mediation and discussions through an OMB process. So there were appeals that were on the docket for the subdivisions that are currently draft plan approved, and it was part of the mediation process through the OMB.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other? Yeah, CEO Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just further to the comments on the value, the current assessed value on the property is $150,000.
Okay.
But it would, sorry, Mayor Allen.
Follow on, Councillor Cabral.
Yes, Mayor Allen, I did also have a question with respect to the liability insurance limitations within the contract and a few other things within the contract. And with respect to even some issues with the bond and the securities, I would feel a lot more comfortable not being thoroughly knowledgeable in a contract that is 204 pages long. I know there's a lot of covenants in there with respect to the county, the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, things that they needed to see in there, and I certainly respect them. But I think from my standpoint, I don't have the thorough knowledge or understanding and opportunity to truly review this particular document to give approval going forward tonight. And I would like to make a motion that we have another meeting with council, with our legal representation, in order for us to go over this a little bit more thoroughly and in depth to make sure that it covers and respects all the financial implications that we need to put in place in order to safeguard the residents of Springwater Township as well as the township itself. So unfortunately, I can't vote for this in favor of this tonight. And I would suggest council should consider the same position. This is a project that's hundreds of millions of dollars. And we've been given since Friday to review the contract. And this is something that's been going on since 2014. I'm sorry, I just cannot in good conscience move forward on this without really having an opportunity to go through it and having an opportunity to ask questions of somebody who's of an appropriate legal mind and understanding of this contract to actually clarify things for me. So my motion, that's the motion I would like to put forward on this particular document.
Okay, let's just hear from the other councillors who have cards up. Councillor Ma, and then Councillor Hanna.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'd have to agree with Councillor Cabral. I did read it, but doesn't mean I comprehended everything. And with all the other meetings we've had and the budget, our heads are full with all that. So I'd have to agree that I didn't thoroughly read and comprehend the whole contract. So I do agree with Councillor Cabral to move this out to even a special meeting or the next council meeting and add it to that. Thank you.
Thank you. CEO Schmidt, can you update us on the status of long-range financial plan exercise and study and report out, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to members of council. So staff are currently working with Watson, our consultant, on updating the long-range financial plan. And we're hoping to have a presentation in the new year, hopefully aiming for the January meeting. If not, it'll be in early February. That'll just be the draft, though. It won't be the final version. It'll just be a draft version.
Councillor Hanna?
Thank you, Mayor. Just my observation, I don't think anybody has said they're objecting to the sewers going through and the draft of the subdivision agreement taking place. I believe the concerns are that we don't understand the 204 pages that we were asked to come up and understand and vote for, and there may be some current concerns about that. So my point being is I don't think anybody's objecting to this. We know the sewer lines, we know the waste plant has to be built, the water plant has to be built. I think the concerns are just with regards to what we're agreeing here to without having all the, say, the background information and knowledge. And if you heard some of the questions, there's some doubt as to what we're supposed to be doing here. I know it says it's a draft stage 2 subdivision agreement. So if it's just a draft agreement, does that mean we can go forward with more information before we approve it?
CEO Schmidt or Director Spagnell? Oh, I see Bruce Engel's got his hand up too. So let's start with the legal side. Bruce?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this agreement has been refined from what was before council when council approved the stage 1 agreement. And stage 1 was restricted, as you recall, to certain activities. And this stage 2 is to allow them to put those pipes in on internal to the subdivision. That's what this subdivision agreement does. And then there's a significant amount of work for the external plants. And that is the stage 3 agreement. And much of what you see in the 204 pages is that document labeled external works agreement. And council would not be tonight agreeing on that. That's a draft, that's a work in progress, but we're not signing off on the external works agreement. It's not ready because we need to have all the plans signed off on by Ainley's and by township staff before that external works piece gets started. It's there as an indication to council that it's well advanced, but we're not finished that piece of it. But the other pieces are there to allow them to do the internal pipe work within their subdivision. And that's the essence of what the stage 2 agreement does. And it would be a fairly conventional process in terms of what you're familiar with other subdivisions. And then you have the external piece, which would come back to council at a future date.
Follow on, Councillor Hanna.
Thank you, Mayor. So through you to our legal counsel, do you see any risk for members of council to vote to support this at this time with the questions that you've heard expressed? As again, I don't believe anybody's trying to stop the progress. We're just concerned about maybe, or some of us are concerned that we don't have the enough knowledge to know what exactly we're voting on.
So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, in my view, it's a fairly conventional agreement in the exclusion of the external works agreement. The rest of it is fairly straightforward. It provides for normal securities that are usually provided for subdivision agreements to secure the internal works that are being provided. It provides for registration on title so that it runs with the land. It requires them to post insurance. All those things are fairly normal. And the template for this came from an approach that the city of Barrie uses. And the reason for that is that we expect that there will be more of these coming forward. And so that council would become familiar with the body of the agreement, which is actually fairly short, is going to be fairly consistent, and then the schedules will be adjusted going forward. So that's the reason that it's in the format that it's in, so that it would set the tone for future agreements. But I'm obviously in council's hands in terms of whether you're comfortable that you have an appropriate understanding of it. But my understanding of it, obviously, I've been working on it more than you have, that I'm comfortable advising you that there's nothing unusual in this in terms of the implementation on the internal services.
Before I go to Councillor Ritchie, can you, Mr. Engel, compare and just remind us compare it to the first stage or the first agreement that we reviewed, and remind us the time frame that we did that, and how does this differ with that?
Well, you caught me short, Mr. Mayor, in terms of the exact timing of when that previous one came forward, and I might ask for some help with the timing for that. That was several months ago. I don't remember the precise time, but what we had done there is to make sure that they were only doing the limited works that we were authorizing, which was the earth moving, but not the installation of any servicing. We had more of this agreement done at the time, but we stopped at saying these parts aren't operative, because we wanted to make sure that council was only approving those limited activities. So we've now removed those stops and restored it to the form that would allow them to get on to putting the pipes in the ground internal to their subdivision, not the external works. So that external works agreement is still, even if you authorized execution of this agreement tonight, that would still have to come back to council. You're not signing off on that tonight.
I see Mr. Mullins come back on. Do you have something to add, Joe?
Mr. Mayor, no, basically just echoing the comments from Bruce there and from CEO Smith, that this is limiting only the work to be completed within the subdivision. The majority of that external agreement that's in front of you is in draft form and will be coming back forth or coming back in front of you in the coming months, at which time we'll be talking about the external works being proceeding, but they are not on the table for this tonight. That's basically internal site servicing on the private property that is currently owned by the developers, and that they will then come back to you, or we will come back to you in the coming months with regard to that external works.
Councillor Cabral, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I guess have a little bit of difficulty in trying to wrap my head around going forward, signing a contract and authorizing the mayor and the clerk to sign a contract on behalf of the township that really sounds like it's open-ended in so many different ways. One of the other concerns I had was with the issue of the insurance. that would be taken out with respect to the development. So I guess my question would be, would page 56 or excuse me, page 58 of the document and page 156 of the document, they both speak to liability, minimum liability insurance. On 58, it references $10 million, which I just have to ask myself, is that enough? And on page 156, it references general liability insurance in the minimum amount of $5 million. And once again, I question that. And on page 156, there's a section D, which I'd love for somebody to be able to interpret that particular section to me, because I didn't understand what it said or meant at all. So this is the reason why I'm struggling with trying to support this tonight and say yes. I mean, I have most motorists now, when they drive their car, it's $2 million liability, unless you're going to go with the absolute minimum, which is, I think, about $300,000 still, but only a fool would drive with that kind of liability insurance on a vehicle. So $2 million for a car accident versus a very extensive development, where in one area they reference 5 million, and in the other area they're referencing this $10 million. So like, I just don't know, is that enough? Or should the minimum be more? Because my job is to represent the residents in my area and also safeguard them from liability issues and risk as well. So I don't know where that question goes to, but that's also a bit of a stumbling block for me too, unless someone can satisfy me that is an adequate amount.
Mr. Engel, do you have comment on the insurance clauses?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The amounts, I think we have to recognize that they are doing works on their own lands. And so these are, I think, standard, fairly standard amounts in terms of liability insurance. It's a different thing from securing the cost of completing, the magnitude of the works. This is, as you say, like the car liability, except they're not out there on the roads for the most part. There will be travel on the roads, but that's vehicular insurance of a different sort. So I think the potential for insurance risk, is covered by the quantum that they have set out in this agreement. And these were standard. This is not something that was negotiated by the owners and saying, well, let's change those amounts. So I think they're fairly standard. In terms of that particular clause that you identified, that's simply to recognize that this insurance is taken out by the developer, and they would, in the normal course, be able to have a cross claim against the municipality, and that's saying that they don't, that we're fully protected by those amounts, and it's not diminished because they can try and blame some of it on us. So that's also, again, that's not something specifically negotiated for this context. That's a standard provision in these contracts.
And I guess as far as insurance is concerned, the surety that we talked about before is our insurance. But the insurance that we talked about here, as you say, is insurance for something that happens when they're working on their internal works.
Yes,
correct, Mr. Engel?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's entirely separate from security as it's defined in the agreement, which is the letter of credits and so on to ensure you can complete the works. This is liability insurance for breaking things or hurting people. That's what that insurance is for.
Councillor Moore?
Oh, thank you, Mayor Allen. I think that yourself and Councillor Hannah and myself have had the advantage of sitting in on the regular meetings with the developer. And so some of the questions that the other councillors might have, maybe we know the answers to, but it does do a disservice to the other councillors who like myself, I've only been on council for a couple of years, and these agreements have been in the works for many years. And I think that it would do us all a really good education session or understanding to go through the contract and make sure we all know what we're voting on. I would like some clarification on a few of the points too.
Okay, CEO Schmidt, how could we best handle this then in the time frame?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Having heard comments from members of council, again, the subject matter is on the agenda tonight for consideration. Again, we have the experts online here. Obviously, individuals have not had the opportunity to go through the full agreement. However, there's multiple agreements that come forward to council, and whether or not you go through them all, I don't know. But to satisfy your requirement, staff have gone through it. Mr. Mullen has gone through it. Mr. Engel has gone through it. Those individuals are experts in the area. And so if you have questions, now's the time to ask those questions. If council is not happy with this and not comfortable with it, then I guess council has to vote on that as to whether they want to proceed with it or not.
Yep. Follow on, Councillor Moore.
Oh, just to say that I don't know what questions to ask, because I haven't had an opportunity to really go through this all very, very carefully. And we just received it a number of days ago. So I really would appreciate some more time.
Okay, Councillor Cabral.
Mayor Allen, through you. The problem is that during a council meeting, it's a little bit difficult to digest all the information and ask the appropriate questions and have sufficient time to really get an opportunity to do it with any kind of clarity or any kind of significance. That's why I've suggested, and I'd still like to present the motion, that we just put this over to a special meeting of council where our legal counsel can actually run through it with us so that we can fully understand how this is going to happen and what we're signing on for. And that will give us also as councillors, at least the new councillors, and I have to profess, I'm pretty ignorant when it comes to large development agreements, and I'm not going to pretend that I know everything, because I don't. But I would like to know more, and I'd like to know it so that when the other developers come forward with those, we won't find ourselves, or at least I won't find myself in quite the same position I find myself tonight. So from my standpoint, I would like to have an opportunity to have some dialogue and discussion with our legal counsel over this entire thing so that they can tell us, well, this part doesn't play into it presently. This part is the part that you're actually signing up for today, this kind of stuff. Because unfortunately right now, it's kind of like we're signing and agreeing to something that is open-ended in a couple of areas, and we don't know which areas it's open-ended in. So I don't know whether we can do this at the very beginning of January and then put it on the next meeting that comes up, and everyone will feel comfortable voting however they want on it, or whether you want to try and move forward today, because unfortunately I can't.
Okay. So logistically, CEO, how could we work something out to have a working session with the lawyers and with the people who are here to go through this document in more detail?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Again, subject to council's consideration. So if the council wishes to have a special meeting in January, staff can arrange for that to happen. And if council wants to, subject to that meeting, wants to bring it forward again to the January 20th regular council meeting, we can arrange for that. If that's what council is, that's what I'm hearing, I think. So yeah. Again, we can take that away.
Okay, Councillor Ritchie, then Councillor Hanna.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I just want to, I agree with what the other councillors are saying. I'm not standing as a roadblock, but I sure so like to know what all it entails. So it'd be nice to come back with a kind of condensed Cole's notes and explain it and go through it, and then going forward, because we're going to see more of these as it unfolds in the Midhurst development. At least we'd feel better as a council as to what what's actually going on. So I would definitely support deferring this and into January and come back with Mr. Engel to explain and even provide us with a Cole's notes of what all this is about. Thank you.
Okay, Clerk Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, through you. So based on Councillor Cabral's information, I have drafted a motion which would need a seconder before it proceeds. That the motion now before council be deferred and that a special meeting be scheduled to review the agreement prior to its approval.
Councillor Ma, you're seconding that? Yes, she's seconding that. Okay, any further discussion, Councillor Hannah?
Thank you, Mayor. And again, I respect that Mr. Engel, our legal counsel, what he said, that we basically are not in too much jeopardy if we approve this. Mr. Mullen, obviously, he knows what's going on, and so does C.A. Schmidt, but I can understand why some members of council have concerns because it's a difficult document to understand. I would suggest, Mayor, you and Councillor Moore and myself would maybe benefit to a little better degree because we have these meetings with the developer where we're able to have very good communication and dialogue and get some of the things that maybe we're not sure about answered. I would suggest that if this is deferred, maybe a part of that deferral meeting could even include inviting the developer for a portion of it so the members of council can benefit the same as we have by asking questions and getting the developer's point of view and the commitment from them, because I found it to be a benefit to me anyway.
Okay, maybe if we could target something the week of January the 11th, because that's the week before our next 20th meeting. So, all right, so we have the motion before us. All those in favor of the motion as read, the amendment? Okay, that is carried. Thank you. So we've dealt with that. Okay. Let me close a screen or two here. Okay, so we're item 10 on the agenda. 10.1 is information reports. Can I have a mover and seconder to get that?
Point of order, Mayor Allen.
Yes.
What about 9.7?
9.7.
Electronic meeting participation.
That was voted for because it wasn't pulled or questioned at the outset.
I'm sorry. Okay, sorry. Keep going.
Okay, back to information reports. Mover and seconder to get that up on the floor. Councillor Moore, Councillor Cabral. Anybody have questions or want to pull any of 1 through 3? Okay. The information reports are the emergency guide, rail repairs, the mitigative efforts and potential impacts to winter maintenance operations due to COVID-19 and ZB 220-015, First Elm Holdings, Inc., Re 2872 Old 2nd South. All those in favor? That is carried. No verbal reports. Oh, verbal reports, official plan update and economic development update. Director Spagnol?
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I do not have anything new to report at this point in time.
Okay. Midhurst development update, I think we've pretty much covered. CEO Schmidt, COVID-19 update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, just a couple of things, just high level on the Midhurst development piece, in addition to the discussion this evening. So the developers are continuing to move forward with the earthworks on that subdivision, on the mixed subdivision, and they're about 80 to 85% complete. Obviously, weather is hampering them proceeding any further. And building services will be in a position to issue a permit for the sales center hopefully in the next couple of days here. And they're anticipating that the foundation for that sales center could be completed before year end. However, obviously subject to weather conditions. On the COVID-19 update, Mr. Mayor, I provide this to council. So as most of you are aware, on December 14th, Simcoe Muskoka, including the Township of Springwater, was moved into the red control level of the province's new COVID-19 response framework. So with this, the following restrictions have been put in place in Springwater. So capacity limits for organized public events and gatherings are set at 5 people for indoor settings and 25 for outdoor. Daily workforce COVID-19 screenings are continuing to take place here at the township. Face coverings are continuing to be required in all indoor public spaces and when proper physical distancing cannot be maintained. Residents are encouraged to restrict non-essential travel and only plan essential outings at this time. Furthermore, everyone is encouraged to self-monitor and stay home if you're sick. And if you have COVID-19 symptoms, obviously get tested and self-isolate until you actually receive your results. Furthermore, by moving to red, certain conditions or certain changes to sports and recreation are required. And staff have been working closely with the health unit and the various sports organizations and clubs. At this time, the Elmville Arena does remain open. However, this may change in the new year depending on the level of rentals. Our current break point is approximately 30 hours minimum per week. So if we drop below this, then staff will be back to council to have a further discussion with you. The township is currently permitted to have 10 skaters on the ice. And this does not include administrative staff such as coaches or trainers. Furthermore, team sports must not be practiced or played except for training like skills and drills. So hence no games or scrimmages are permitted at this time. And the screening of patrons is required, and we've been doing this for a bit, and they're required to use our Springwater COVID-19 pre-screening form. In addition to that, the Township Administration Center does remain open to the public. However, appointments are strongly encouraged at this point. All community centers, fire halls, and public works yards remain closed to the public. And again, please note that the Township Administration Center will be closed as of noon on December 24th and will reopen again on Monday, January 4th in recognition of the upcoming holidays. Today, the province announced additional financial relief for municipalities, and the Township of Springwater is actually expected to receive another one-time payment of approximately $98,000. And this is to go towards assisting with the financial pressures caused by COVID-19. And lastly, to date, Springwater has had 80 confirmed cases of COVID, of which 53 have now recovered and 1 has passed. And since the last time I reported to council on December 2nd, the township has seen a significant increase in number of local cases. As of December 2nd, I reported 43 confirmed cases in Springwater. And since then, we've had actually 37 new cases. The lights just went out here. My apologies. On a more positive note, there's been no new cases reported in Springwater in the past 2 days. And furthermore, we just ask that residents of the township remain vigilant during this time and ensure that they are abiding by proper public health measures. And that concludes my update for this evening, Mr. Mayor. Happy to take any questions.
Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Mayor. CEO Schmidt, with the COVID-19 restrictions that currently exist, could you please advise what's the restrictions, if any, to do with outdoor pavilions? I ask that because the pavilion in Midhurst, the volunteers have been considering flooding it, and I don't know whether they actually started last night or not, but it's no sense in flooding it if they're not going to be able to use it.
CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Hannah. So Councillor Hannah, our rec staff have been working with the various volunteers and looking at all of our outdoor rinks. I believe we have approximately 14 or 15 different outdoor rinks. We're in the process of actually preparing signage, which would provide for, we actually are required in the red zone to actually post capacity limits on each of those outdoor rinks, which I believe capacity limits are set for us at 10 per facility. And so those signs will be going up shortly, and staff will continue to work with the health unit to ensure that we're abiding by proper measures. And I believe the health unit is also in the process of updating their guidance document, if you will, that they produce for various items. And they are revamping the guidance document that they have for outdoor rinks. So I will have a call tomorrow with the health unit and hopefully at that time have further information and can provide further information to council subject to the discussion tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you. County updates. The only significant one we had last week, the interim inauguration and voting for the deputy warden and the chairs and vice chairs. Mayor Lynn Dolan was voted as the deputy warden of Simcoe County for the remaining 2 years of term. I was acclaimed as chair of performance management business section, and Deputy Mayor Coughlin was voted as the vice chair of the business section for human services. So they take effect immediately for the next 2 years. Any municipal updates? Councillor Hannah.
Well, thank you. I'm sure everybody's aware that our volunteer fire services are committed to delivering Santa Claus through the municipalities on Christmas Eve. And I just wanted to let all of council know that I received a large number of compliments and thank yous from residents who are looking forward to it, given all the problems they've had with COVID-19. So thank you to our fire service.
Thank you. Any other municipal updates? Okay, any items for any notices of motion? Okay, items for future consideration, item 13. No items for future consideration. Can I have a mover and seconder for the approval of the bylaws? Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Moore, that the bylaws listed herein be signed and sealed by the Mayor and Clerk, 2020-106 Culture Advisory Committee. Terms of reference, 2020-107 Water Regulation and Rating Bylaw, 220-108 Wastewater Regulation and Rate Bylaw, 5000-325 ZB 2020-11 Rogers, and 5000-328 ZB 219-003 Search and Contracting Limited. All those in favor? And a mover and seconder for the bylaws, please. Councillor Moore and Councillor Ma, that the bylaw 2020-112 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of council at the regular meeting held on December 16, 2020, listed herein, be signed and sealed by the Mayor and Clerk. All those in favor? That is carried. Before adjournment, just want to take this opportunity to thank council and wish them Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And everybody who's listening, please stay safe and abide by what we're being recommended to do. I know we're all looking forward and wondering when we might be able to get vaccinated, but I think that's down the road considerably in 2021. So stay safe, stay healthy, and happy holidays to everybody. Can I have
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Before we adjourn, we have some requests to speak. Councillor Cabral.
Actually, Mayor Allen, I'm just looking at the calendar here. Do we not have another meeting on the 21st? Just so that I can save my Merry Christmas till then, or should I give it to you now?
21st, I believe Clerk Ainsworth, is that a, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. That is for a closed session.
Yeah.
So this is the last regular meeting.
Session.
Yeah,
So
Merry Christmas.
I thought that was it, but I just wanted to confirm. Okay, mover and seconder to adjourn, please. Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Moore, that the regular meeting in the Township of Springwater does now adjourn at 9:28 p.m. to meet again a regular meeting on January 20, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.